Hello, my friends, and welcome to another episode of the Million Pound Mission Podcast. It's your buddy Adam, the PhD, the previously heavy dude, and this is episode number 328, Achieving Metabolic Flexibility, with my good friend Rachel Gregory. I cannot wait to dive into this one. Rachel is one of my favorite new people. I met her first at Keto Summit Omaha, and we got to stay in the Keto Savage Mansion getaway. And we had 12, maybe 15 ketogenic influencers all staying in one awesome place put up by the Keto Brick people. Our boy, Robert, Keto Savage, Robert Sykes. And that was a good time. So Rachel and I got to brainstorm. We set up an interview. We've got a few things in the works to collaborate. But Rachel is a super awesome person. And also a special bonus episode will be coming out this Friday. Well, it's not really a bonus episode. It's the normal Friday episode, but we did a community chat with Rachel. So you can listen to this episode today. And then on Friday, I brought Rachel into our Mission Possible community on one of our evening chats, and we just blasted away with questions. So if you guys have not joined the free Mission Possible community, this is just one of the amazing and awesome benefits. I bring these experts into our realm of the Million Pound Mission podcast, and then I want to connect them to you through these chats where we have special guests come in and talk, and you can fire away directly with Q&As in a small group format. So if you want to join the Mission Possible community, go to millionpoundmission.com. You can participate in chats like you're going to hear on Friday. We've got hot seats. It's week 4 in our 28-day cycle this week. So we're focusing on one-on-one hot seats with myself. We are prepping for the next cycle. Week 4 is when we like to get that battle plan workbook all dialed up. All of the resources are ready and available for you at millionpoundmission.com. You'll see the Mission Possible community opt-in. Just fill out your info. Give me an email to send you your starting materials. We'll get you going, get you plugged into all the cool stuff like the hot seats, the group chats, the challenge week, all that stuff. And it's all free, which is amazing. Let's see what else before we get started. Oh, yes. Also on the website, millionpoundmission.com. For like 2 years now, I've been getting requests for one-on-one coaching. And I finally figured out a way to optimize my schedule so I could pull this off. So I do have an application for one-on-one coaching. If, obviously we have the free community, all that stuff. I really add a lot of value to that. If you just feel like you need a little bit more accountability, a little more one-on-one attention from me, you and I will be working directly, no one else, just me and you. You can apply for that. I can only take a few people per 28-day cycle, but this is a good time to apply during week 4. And if I have openings, we can start the next week, which would be awesome. But you can do that at millionpoundmission.com as well. You'll see an application on there. You fill that out, get your info over to me, and we'll get you in the queue to get you up for coaching. Okay, let's dive into this week's interview with Rachel. So wouldn't it be amazing if we could use our nutrition optimally to meet our energy demands? So like when we needed to use body fat, we had body fat, or we had fat fuels ready to go and we could optimally use that. And then maybe we need some carbs or sugar for quick energy, and we could optimally do that without just storing gobs of body fat like normal people do in normal eating situations. So becoming metabolically flexible is a goal for a lot of people, even if we don't actually realize it. But that's a goal for a lot of people on a weight loss journey, but we just don't understand how to get there. And this week I'm bringing Rachel in to help us along that whole journey to become metabolically flexible. And Rachel is a Keto for Women and Metabolic Flexibility expert. Good for us. Lucky for us, I should say. And she's also the host of the brand new podcast, MetFlex and Chill. You will want to hit subscribe on that. Search that in iTunes, MetFlex and Chill, and you will thoroughly enjoy that. And she's on a mission to inspire and instruct others on how to improve their lives and achieve their goals through proper education, awareness, and accountability as it relates to all aspects of nutrition and fitness. And now you see why we get along so well. She used the magic word there, accountability. So in this conversation, we dive into her definition of metabolic flexibility and how we get there. We get her top tips for females as they dive into a low-carb lifestyle, which is always just a very, very handy topic. We actually dive into a lot of that on the Q&A with the community on Friday. So if that's an area that you want to really ramp up your knowledge in, make sure you listen to that episode as well. That'll be episode 329 coming out on Friday. We talk about the biggest mistakes she is seeing people make on their health journey. And then she gives us a quick actionable tip that anyone can take to get on the road to becoming metabolically flexible. Great episode. Rachel, like I said, is one of my favorite people out there in the health space right now. And I'm really, really excited for everything that she's putting out there. I can't wait for you to listen to this. If you've never been into her universe, you are going to like what you hear today and again on Friday in the community chat. So without any further delay, let's dive into episode number 328, Achieving Metabolic Flexibility with Rachel Gregory. All right, Rachel Gregory, welcome to the Million Pound Mission podcast. How are you doing today, my friend?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm fired up. We met about a week ago now at the Keto Summit in Omaha, Nebraska. We became fast friends, and I was like, and you were somebody I was kind of plugged into, watching your stuff happen on Instagram. I knew I wanted you on the show. I knew you were going to be out there. So that was part of my mission, was to connect and befriend you out there. And I just am so excited to share what you have to say to my audience, because I know they're going to eat it up. So welcome to the show.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about, I like to start with your own health journey, and like how you got interested in, health, the low carb lifestyle, ketogenic diet, metabolic flexibility, like all that intrigue and interest came from somewhere. So what's the journey look like?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up playing sports my entire life. I was a tomboy. I I make this joke a lot because I refused to wear dresses. My mom would always try to make me wear dresses, and I completely refused. I was your typical sporty tomboy. So I was around sports my whole life. And my household was pretty healthy. So I grew up in a pretty health conscious household for at least what my parents knew. We would keep things like soda out of the house, but then my dad would have cereal for breakfast every day, thinking that like Honey Bunches of Oats and Cheerios, heart healthy Cheerios. So it was kind of like this, like they only did what they what's that saying that everybody's saying lately? It's like, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like everybody keeps saying that lately, but it's true. So it was pretty healthy conscious household, played sports and all that. So um, when I was in high school, I thought that I wanted to play basketball in college. I ended up getting injured, so that didn't happen. And so I decided to go on and get my college degree in athletic training, because I figured if I couldn't be an athlete, I could treat the athletes and kind of still have that whole thing, kind of the whole sports thing, staying with it. And so I went to University of Miami undergrad in athletic training. And I decided to try out triathlons when I got there. That was kind of big. So I joined the club team. And so I was super into triathlons and athletic training. And by my junior year of college, I loved like the athletic training side of things. I love working with athletes. But I took my first nutrition class. And I got super interested in basically everything nutrition. And at that point I was training a lot for triathlon. So I was kind of like, all right, I probably should start paying attention to what I'm eating if I really want to, compete at a higher level.
Right.
So that's when I got into nutrition, and I just kind of went down the rabbit hole of everything nutrition, just became passionate about it. And so I decided I wanted to get my master's degree in nutrition. So I went on to James Madison University in Virginia, and I worked as an athletic trainer and pursued my master's degree in nutrition exercise physiology. And that's where I discovered the ketogenic diet. So that's kind of where it all started in grad school, back in 2014. Yeah,
Way back in the 2014s.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, okay, tell me about the CrossFit study, because that seemed like something super interesting that really popped out when I was doing my research on you. Like, this is a pretty unique deal that you were the first person to test keto with CrossFit athletes, and not like elite competitors, right? It was more just the average Joe CrossFitter, right?
Yeah, exactly. So when I actually went to grad school, I put triathlons aside because I just didn't have time. I was a graduate student. I was an athletic trainer. And I also moved to Virginia where it's super hilly. And I was like, I don't think I want to do triathlons anymore because
Yeah.
it's like hills and cold and all that. So I was like, what can I do that's just somewhere where I can go get a quick workout in, still be pretty competitive. And so, like in college, I think when I was in college, this is when CrossFit first started to become pretty big. And so I told myself, I was like, I'm never doing that. That's crazy. Like, what are these people thinking? They're like throwing barbells over their head, and that's so dangerous and all this stuff. And that was me like on the outside looking in, having no idea like what an actual CrossFit gym kind of looked like and what the environment was like. So when I got to Virginia, I was like, all right, I want to try something new, get a good, just, quick hour workout in the morning before everything starts. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to try out CrossFit. So I went to one of the gyms there, and I went like maybe 2 or 3 times, and I just absolutely fell in love with like the environment. The coaches were awesome, and that's kind of what got me going back. So that's where I discovered CrossFit. And so I started getting more into it. And then when we had for my master's thesis, so my master's degree was 2 years long, and we had to do a thesis study. And a lot of my classmates were doing more research-based studies, like surveys and things like that. And I just knew that that's not something that I would be super interested and would keep my interest for like a full 2 years. So I was like, all right, I'm going to kind of do something different. And so basically I had to figure out how to do some type of nutritional intervention in an exercise population. That's what I figured I wanted to do when I was talking to my advisor. He was like, that's, you just have to find an exercise population and find a nutritional intervention. So after doing CrossFit for a little bit, I kind of surveyed the gym and asked if anybody would be interested in participating in a nutrition study. And I got a lot of good response. And so the next step was just finding a nutritional intervention to use. And it was I really, really wanted to look at body composition changes,
Yeah.
and how it would affect performance. And so I actually came across the ketogenic diet. I was just doing research, and my advisor said, the one thing you want to pay attention to is look for what's missing. So like when you dive into the literature, see what's out there and see what's missing, or a subject that has not been researched or studied before. And so I came across the ketogenic diet. Again, this is back in 2014 before it became big. And so I was like, all right, I'm just going to go with it. And I kind of just went all in on the research, learned all I could about keto, tried it out for myself, and then carried out this study. And it was a 6-week study. So we had about 30 participants, and we looked at, divided them in randomly into 2 groups, and basically had one group follow the ketogenic diet for the 6 weeks. And then had a control group who just followed the standard American diet. And basically the hypothesis was that the ketogenic diet group would lose a significant amount of body fat while maintaining their muscle mass or lean body mass. Because based off the research for what I saw at that point in time, there wasn't much on performance research, especially in like strength training. But there was some research showing that ketones are muscle preserving, and that so that's kind of what we wanted to show while
Right.
still being able to lose body fat. Sorry, I'm like going all over the place.
No, I mean, this is super interesting because like you were one of the first people to do this, if not the first person to dive into this. And so how did you make the transition from, all right, we did this study, we found out some things, and the transition into like, all right, I really want to focus now on the ketogenic diet specifically for women and the differences there, and kind of, because I have a lot of clients, our listener base is primarily female, and I get a lot of questions about this. And there's a lot of fear around going low carb as a female. So let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So that really came about just from years of testing out things on my own, working with my own clients, trial and error. And so after that study was done, I got it published and graduated from grad school. And, after that is when I really decided to, I kind of got sidetracked for like a year after grad school. I worked for a supplement company. And then I figured out it really wasn't what I wanted to do. So after that kind of sidetrack year or learning year, I guess you could call it, I decided to pursue, the ketogenic lifestyle full on for myself. I became a board certified nutritionist and I started working with clients. And that's when I really just started, and that's when keto actually started to get more popular. So, um, there's all different, I guess you could say there's all different ways to kind of quote unquote keto, right? Like everybody has like, there's different methodologies to it. It's not like a one size fits all approach.
Right.
So basically just over the years, I've tested out so many different, things for myself, whether that's, what all different types of intermittent fasting, high protein, low protein, high fat, low carb, carnivore, all of the different kind of branches of the ketogenic diet, you could say. So I did that for myself. And then I also would do that for my clients. We would test out different things, see, figure out what worked for them, because everybody's their own individual. What works for one person is not going to work for the other person per se. And so that's what really propelled me into working with women specifically, because I found that there was these different kind of avenues that we would go down. And for most of the women I worked with, there was things that worked really well and there was things that didn't work very well. And so that's what kind of propelled me into developing what I have now, which is the Keto for Women program. And it's basically kind of merging the ketogenic lifestyle and all the components of that, but also taking a look at just fat loss in general and kind of the overarching principles of fat loss when it comes to pursuing a change, but in a sustainable way where you also are incorporating different lifestyle factors as well. So obviously we know nutrition is the biggest piece of that, but there's also things like, exercise, strength training, mindset, hormones, all of those things play a role. And so that's kind of what I focus on now, is kind of bringing all of these, I guess you could say, branches together and making it make sense and helping women find what works for them as an individual, rather than prescribing them some like cookie cutter plan that
Right.
just, yeah, maybe you can follow it for a month, but it's not going to be a lifestyle,
Right. Well, let's dive into some of the questions that I get that pop up from females that are either doing the ketogenic diet or are interested in doing the keto diet. They're keto curious, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
So what about the biggest question I get is around menstrual cycle disruption. Like, I'm afraid I'll just totally lose everything if I go low carb. I've had some success with kind of ramping people slowly down and finding kind of their carb tolerance. Any suggestions or thoughts around that?
Yeah, so it really depends where you're coming from. So most of the women that come to me have been keto for a while, and they've gone through everything, and they've found success in the beginning, and then they kind of hit a plateau, whether it was for their fat loss efforts or maybe they're trying to mend some different hormonal things and things like that. So it really just depends on where you're coming from. But if you were just starting off, I would say right now my approach is kind of the similar to what you mentioned for women who are completely new, is maybe taking a slower approach where you kind of start off low carb and then you implement lower and lower in carb until you get to that kind of keto threshold. That works well for some women. And then there's some who are can dive in at that 50 grams total carb,
Yeah.
get into ketosis, feel great. The issue with like the menstrual cycle and things like that is that no matter what type of change you make, like if you make a drastic change to your diet, whether it's, low carb, low fat, whatever it is, whatever drastic change that is, like that is going to change how things are working in your body. So with that, with a lot of, from my experience, when I take women, directly just jump right into keto, they may see some alterations in their mental cycle in the first few months, and then it will start to regulate again or normalize, or they come into it and they've already been irregular and keto will actually help them normalize. But this is the thing, like it's so individual because it also depends on like how much you're eating,
Yeah.
whether you're eating enough is the biggest thing. So a lot of women who actually have menstrual cycle dysfunction is a lot of it's because they're just not eating enough, period.
Correct.
So a lot of it comes down to that piece of it, but then also like what else is going on? Like, are they stressed out day in and day out? Are they sleeping 3 hours a night? Like all of these different factors play into that. So diet is obviously very important, but it's like, again, you have to kind of look at the whole picture. And that's what I've realized over the years is that there's so many of these components that play a piece to it. And again, nutrition is very, very, very important. But you can't ignore the other components.
Yeah. And to your point, I know we both see a lot of people that dive in head first, but they're doing these large changes and multiple large changes. So drop my carbs, drop my calories, no sugar, lots of exercise, and their body's going, what in the hell is happening? So
Exactly.
having some normal disruption and functions like the menstrual cycle, like that makes sense. So just some broad brush advice, like if somebody does keto and maybe we say, okay, let's bring your calories up a little bit back to kind of what your body's used to, so they're just changing that one variable of carbohydrates now, and so we're good there, but they're noticing some disruption. Like how long should they hang in there or feel like, okay, I need to at least give it a month or 2 months or whatever, and then if it still is messed up, I should kind of be more concerned of looking at things here?
Yeah, so I would say with anybody just who's never, been quote unquote in ketosis before, it's yes, we know that you can. This is male or female. You can get into ketosis within a few days, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your body actually understands what it's like to actually use ketones for fuel. So that's when we get into the whole keto adapted or fat adapted part of it, and I think that actually doesn't happen until maybe, 2 months into it when your body is truly starting to understand, okay, this is this new fuel source. These are ketones. I've never seen these before. My body, like your body just doesn't know what to do with them. So you're not using them to their full ability until you start to teach your body how to use them. And it just takes time. So I usually say for anybody who is just starting off, like at least give it 2 months. To really get into it and to get your body used to using these ketones for fuel. And then once you have kind of that foundation down and maybe you've been, quote unquote, fat adapted for a few months now, and you're looking to change other things up or kind of maybe some other things are going on with your menstrual cycle, then that's when we would start to incorporate different tools and strategies to help mitigate some of maybe the negative effects that you've been experiencing or just things that you want to work on. And so that's what I really go into in the Keto Forum program. I teach how to really implement carb up strategically, what that looks like, different, like if their goal is fat loss, really how to do it in a strategic and sustainable way. So you're not just like chronically in a caloric deficit for months on end, but you're introducing things like refeed days or breaks from this deficit. And those would go along with those carb ups. Or a lot of women, start fasting with keto, right? And fasting is very powerful. But with women, it can be a little bit different because fasting is it's a stress to your body, right?
Yeah.
And it's a good stress, but with anything, too much of a good thing can be a bad thing.
Yeah.
So that's also one of the things that I've seen with a lot of women over the years is that, and I did this myself, kind of going down that fasting rabbit hole where you think, okay, I did a little bit of fasting and it worked well, so maybe I should do more and more and more. And, that can be not so great. So that's another piece of the puzzle that we kind of look at. Okay, how much are you fasting? Are you already stressed out in other areas of your life and you're adding this other stressor to it? Are you chronically exercising? Like all these pieces and all of these, tools and things that you can use to help you can also be things that can hurt you. So it's really
Yeah.
just figuring out, okay, how do I manage this for myself, for my own lifestyle? And yeah, I think
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question or not. I forgot what the question was.
No, I mean, I think we're hitting on a lot of the hot button topics. Like the carb up is another one. Now, when you say carb up, are we talking like go to Dairy Queen and hit the milkshakes? Or are we talking about like clean eating carb up?
Definitely not the dairy. I mean, yeah, definitely not Dairy Queen.
Because I have to clarify, because we can't give people license. They're like, they said it, carb up, Pizza Hut. Here we go.
Yeah, no, unfortunately not. But
Yeah.
it's mostly just focusing on those carbs that are, real food. So whether it's more squash, more fruit, more potatoes, things like that. For me in particular, I always like my carb ups consist of just, more winter squash varieties or more sweet potatoes or more fruit. That's mostly, where they come from. And, we also have to look at it realistically too. So a lot of the women that come to me, and for myself too, and I've realized this over the years, is that, we live in a world of, you know, ice cream and pizza and weddings and parties and things like that. And so it's really the fact that if we're talking about this as a lifestyle, you have to understand that there's going to be times when, yes, you're going to be at a wedding and there's going to be a piece of cake in front of you. And, the goal is to not be scared to eat that piece of cake
Right.
every once in a while. The goal is to say, okay, this is a special occasion. I can have this piece of cake and, maybe a few days later still get back into ketosis if that's my goal. Or if not, I mean, my whole thing that I've been going more towards and teaching more about, and pretty much the biggest concept within my Keto for Women program, is teaching them how to become more metabolically flexible.
Yes.
Teaching your body how to learn how to use both fuel sources appropriately. So when I'm sitting at my desk for 5 hours straight, I don't want to be burning sugar and hungry all the time and not be able to focus because my blood sugar is going all over the place. I want to be, I want my body to understand how to use fat for fuel, how to use ketones, versus if I'm, at the gym and I'm doing like sprint intervals or something like that, that's probably where my body needs to understand how to use a little bit more carbs or sugar. And it's really being able to teach your body how to kind of go back and forth between these two fuel sources, which is something that in general, America cannot do, because most people are following the standard American diet. Their body has never been taught, right, how to use fat for fuel or ketones for fuel. They're always in this higher sugar burner state. And so that's kind of where we need to, I think, make some changes. And that's where keto comes in, because your body can only know how to start to use fat and ketones for fuel if you teach it. So you have to teach it first. You have to be in ketosis for a little while, teach it how to use these ketones for fuel, teach it how to use your own fat for fuel, do some intermittent fasting, things like that, so that you can kind of build up that, runway to allow your body to go back and forth between those fuel sources when it's warranted.
So I love the whole concept and your passion for metabolic flexibility, but let's define a little bit more clearly, because I feel like this will be a confusion point for the audience a little bit. So basically what I'm gathering is that step one is let's go low carb and teach our body how to use ketones, get into ketosis, kind of make that our home base. So like our primary fuel source will be fat, ketones. Like that's where we want our body to be in a home based situation. But we want to be able to strategically use sugar when it makes sense, sugar / carbs. So how do we teach? I get how we teach our body how to be in ketosis. How do we teach our body to strategically use carbs? Is that just becoming, a side effect of being insulin sensitive from being low carb, or like how do we do the high carb situation? Make sure our body is trained to efficiently utilize those.
Yeah. So what I've seen is it comes down, again, it's different for everybody, but it's really just this, being able to switch between these two fuel sources and doing it efficiently, so that you're not like going through quote unquote the keto flu every time you try to get back into.
Because everybody freaks out about that. Like, I know you hear this too. Like, I ate a piece of cake, I'm going to go through keto flu again. It's like a reset button is hit. And I know that's not the case.
Yeah, that's not the case because again, it comes back to teaching your body how to use ketones. So if you have been in a state of ketosis for a while, your body recognizes that. So it's not just like, oh, I you eat a piece of, I mean, this comes down to becoming fat adapted first and being in ketosis for a few months, or being at least keto adapted for a few months before you start to maybe introduce carb ups or before you have that piece of cake. Um, and your body's going to recognize that fuel source again. So you could have a piece of cake and then I'm not saying like go out and eat a piece of cake every single day or every weekend, but your body is going to, the more you kind of go between these two different fuel sources, the more your body understands how to use each one from what I've seen. And from my experience, like, you know, when I first started introducing carb ups into my routine, it would take me, and I would test to get back into ketosis. It would take, you know, sometimes a few days. And then the more I started incorporating, say, like a carb up, for example, in the keto form program, we implement, when we get into the second phase, we implement a carb up once a week on weekends. And so like at first it might take, you know, a few days to get back into ketosis. And then, you know, maybe it might take only like 48 hours or 24 hours. And it also depends on your exercise too, and all of
Yeah.
this, like how much you're exerting yourself. But it's really just like you mentioned, you know, getting your body adapted to this new fuel source and then start implementing different strategies. And this can be also strategies like intermittent fasting and things like that, along with the carb ups. So that's kind of, it's very dependent too on the person and what works for their lifestyle as well. The concept is really just being able to go between these different fuel sources effectively and efficiently. And it's really just like, instead of being a full-on sugar burner your entire life, your body understands how to become a fat burner. So you're able to go back and forth, between these. So that's like kind of the ultimate goal for me, for my life and for my clients, is to teach them how to become more metabolically flexible so that, you know, if they have a wedding that they're going to, they're not going to be afraid to eat that piece of
Right.
cake. You know what I mean? And then it also comes back to this concept I call carb phobia. We were all so fat phobic for so long. And
Yeah.
so now I feel like, even for myself, like going through, what has it been, like six years now that I've kind of been in this lifestyle, I came to a point where I got super, super carb phobic. Like I would be scared to eat a piece of a sweet potato because I was just afraid of carbs, right? And I was like, I came to a point and like a revelation. I was like, I should not be scared to eat a real food that comes from the ground, you know, the sweet potato. So when I kind of flipped that switch in my head, I was like, well, we've been so fat phobic for so long. Like we shouldn't, yes, we understand why fats are healthy and all of that, but we shouldn't just completely demonize all carbs,
Yeah.
especially the ones that are whole food sources of carbs, like fruits and stuff like that. And we can go into the whole, you know, how fruits have developed over the years and they're not really what they were like 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago, whatever.
Yeah.
But that's a whole different
So,
story.
so with the carb ups, once you start incorporating those, what do the macros look like when you make that shift? Are we like doubling carbs, tripling carbs? Like how does that shift look like when you adjust the macros?
Yeah. So in general, like with myself and my clients, I, you know, generally recommend and from what I found, most people can stay in ketosis, especially when you're first starting off, with a total of 50 grams of carbs. And what I've seen is that as you are become more keto adapted, and depending on what your activity level is like,
Mhm.
you can potentially tolerate more carbs and still quote unquote be in ketosis. So with the carb ups, it's kind of, there's like a formula that I've put together, like depending on different things, but it's really, for example, in my keto form program, it's like we go from 50 grams of carbs to like 150 grams of carbs one day a week. And it's also kind of, it's like giving your body that kind of shock as well. And there's also some research behind, especially within like a fat loss phase. So like my keto form program is very, very centric on, like, the main concept is, you know, women who have been keto for a while, they've hit a plateau. They're really, their main focus right now is they want to focus on fat loss. They want to quote unquote lose the last 10 pounds or
Yeah.
whatever. So there is some research showing that some different hormones can be affected, especially for women, when you've been too low carb for too long, especially with insulin and leptin and things like that. So there's good amount of research showing that leptin is positive. Leptin is the fullness hormone. So you have your hunger hormones. Leptin is the hormone that tells your brain that you're full. Ghrelin is the hormone that tells your brain and your body that you're hungry. So there's some anecdotal research and some other research showing that if you've been super low carb, super keto for a while, mostly anecdotal research, that your leptin levels can drop a little bit.
Okay.
And so carbs have been shown to bring those back up. And then also some other hormones as well. Again, the research, like the true, I don't know if you say true research, but the non-anecdotal research is not all there yet with all this stuff because it's so new. But from like anecdotal research, anecdotal meaning like real life stories and stuff like that.
Right. So on the carb up days, is it just increase carbs and keep protein and fat the same, or are you lowering protein and or fat? Are you keeping the overall calorie level about the same, or does that go up as well?
So with my approach to carb ups, I use them for also refeed days. So within, when you're in a fat loss phase, there's something called what we call refeed days. It's basically bringing your calories back up to their maintenance level.
Okay.
It's very individualized too for how you do this, depending on where you're at and kind of your goals and all of that. But so I would say, like, if I was using it for a refeed day, I just bring the carbs up and I probably lower the fat a little bit. But if you were trying to kind of keep your calories the same, then you would just bring your carbs up and lower your fat.
Okay.
I generally keep protein where it's at. And I personally aim for a higher protein approach. So more of like I said, keto there's different, routes you can go. But even with like a lot of my clients, we implement higher protein and they can still even be in ketosis with higher amounts of protein. But again, the goal is not always to be in ketosis 24/7. And that's another kind of concept that I talk about, but yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So that makes sense. Thanks for diving deep on the carb up. Now, I don't want to miss the opportunity to plug your podcast as we talk about metabolic flexibility. You have a new show that I want everyone to subscribe to. A really great name. It's just okay. So we've been talking, just to set you up, we've been talking about metabolic flexibility. What's the podcast name, Rachel?
My new podcast is MetFlex and Chill.
MetFlex and Chill. How awesome is that? That name is great. I want a shirt that says MetFlex and Chill. Give it to me. I'm ready to hand over my credit card. So yeah, this will be awesome. So just wherever you guys listen to podcasts, get in there and hit the subscribe button and check out MetFlex and Chill. Okay. Bonus question about the podcast, Rachel. You're connected to, the whole, health and ketogenic space. Who are you most excited to try to interview? Like who's it doesn't be the most, but who's somebody like, ooh, that person I'm super excited to pick the brain.
That's a hard question. I've already started writing out my list, or continued writing my list. I don't know. There's so many. Well, I definitely want to interview you for sure.
That's an easy answer. Like who's out there maybe that you don't know? You're like, I don't know them, but I would like to be connected to them, that I would love to interview that person.
Oh man, this is a hard question.
Put you on the spot.
I don't know.
All right.
There's so many.
I'll let you come back to it.
Let me think about it.
It'll be so.
Now I'm blanking. I'm not good at on the spot questions.
That's all good. It's all good.
I need to get better at that.
Yeah. Somebody might ask you a question on your own show, and you're like,
yeah, I know, right?
Let me ask Google. All right. Now, one of the things that you and I really hit it off about as we started to kind of, just meet each other and talk is that neither one of us is too like campy. Like we get it. Like there are lots of options. It's not like keto or die, or like if you're not keto, you're wrong. Like I believe
these are all good names for
keto or die. sign up for my new program, Keto or Die. That's forget MetFlex and Chill, just call it Keto or Die. So that's one of the things that I really enjoyed about you, that sometimes you go to a ketogenic summit or conference and people are like, it is like that. It's like, keto is good, everything else is bad. We're right, they're wrong. But you're not like that. So let's look at broad brush health space in general. What is just something that's frustrating you out there, that like you feel like people are being misinformed, or people just aren't getting it, or just something that's frustrating in general about the health space that we both exist in?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I think that I used to be one of those people too. Like when I first started keto and I was like, wow, this is because I just had, there's so many positive effects that I had. Like I wasn't thinking about food all the time. I could, maintain my weight for where I wanted to be at. I was so mentally focused all day long and all these things that I was like, I'm never going back to carbs again. Like this is where it's at. And I think that it really comes down to just time, right? Spending time and your body developing through this, because your body changes over time. And so that's what I found. Like a lot of people start keto, they're hardcore, even like for a year or two. And then eventually, they get to the point where they're, some people can stay keto forever and feel amazing, but eventually they start to feel even better. And maybe they pick up their exercise a little bit and do other things. Or maybe they've been fasting for so long and they're kind of like, all right, I need to stop fasting so much and all these different things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it's just always, you're just continuing to develop and learn about yourself. So I think within like the health space itself, the one thing that I do think about keto, especially a lot of people come to keto because they hear the amazing benefits of, effortless weight loss or effortless fat loss. And they kind of come into it and they're like, oh, like I just have to cut out the carbs, but I can eat anything that has fat in it. So whether it's, I don't know, a bacon double cheeseburger with no bun, like that's technically keto, or like 15 hot dogs or whatever. So I think there's kind of, we call it like doing dirty keto versus clean keto and things like that. I think you can get away with that. You can get away with quote unquote dirty keto for a while, but I think it's going to catch up to you eventually. Yeah. So that is one thing that kind of, I see people coming into keto not really like kind of only hearing little things here and there or doing some Google research. And they might be setting themselves up to kind of have some issues down the line if that's the route they're taking. Or they're coming in and they're like, I can eat all the fat I want. I don't have to think about calories anymore. I'll lose weight eating all of this, butter and cheese and all of that. And then it's kind of a rude awakening when maybe you see a little bit of fat loss in the beginning because you're losing some water weight, or maybe you're becoming more satiated from what you're eating, but then you start eating more and you have no concept of, the actual food you're consuming and how much of it you're consuming. And then you kind of hit this plateau and you not understand what's happening. So that whole area of kind of calories, people say they don't matter, but personally, I think they do. They're not all that matters, but if someone says calories don't matter for fat loss, I think that there's something else going on there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that's my take.
Yeah. You and I got into this. I mean, we were on the same side of this discussion, but we talked about like, I just put it in terms of food volume. Like food volume matters. If you don't want to call it a calorie, I don't care. But if you eat 20 steaks versus 10 steaks, something's going to happen, like there's a difference there.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't just miraculously eat everything in sight, even if it's keto.
Yeah.
And, not expect, like, where does it go?
Yeah.
It doesn't just miraculously fall off your body.
All right. Let's talk a little bit about, I want to make sure people can get plugged into your world. I don't want to mess it up. We talked about the podcast, MetFlex and Chill, but where are some other places that people can get into your universe and find out more about you and get coached by you?
Yeah, sure. So right now my main website is killinitketo.com. So there's no G's, just killing it.
Killing.
Keto.
She's young. That's why. Killing it.
Yeah. So that's my main website. And then on social media, same thing, Killing It Keto. And then, MetFlex and Chill is my podcast. Damn.
What about Instagram? You're killing it keto on
Instagram, yep,
Instagram.
Instagram and Facebook, killing it keto. That name actually came out of creating an Instagram to just show pictures of my food. And I was like, oh, what am I going to call this Instagram? And I was like, oh, killing it keto. And
Yes,
then it
and
just stuck.
I will tell you guys, her Instagram account, I'm sure her podcast may or may not be this way, but I know for sure her Instagram account and her website, Killing It Keto, are excellent, excellent, excellent nutritional resources. And that is something that I admit that is lacking in the Million Pound Mission world, because I don't care how things taste. Like I literally, like I will eat whatever. I'll eat liver. I ate cow tongue the other day. Like it's just like, and I won't season it. I am totally just there for the nutrition. If something is nutritious, I just love it. I'm like, that's better than taste for me. And people are like, Adam, you're stupid. I can't do this. I can't eat cow tongue unflavored. So this blog and her Instagram page are excellent. If you are interested in taste, these are great resources. So make sure you hit the subscribe button, follow her on Instagram. Her Instagram stories are excellent. I saw you cooking squash the other day. Squash is like my arch nemesis, Rachel. I get so frustrated because everybody's like, oh, spaghetti squash. You just cut it in half and then you heat it, you cook it, and then you take a fork and it scrapes out. And it's just like pasta. I've never, ever, ever, like I get so frustrated with it. Every time I get it, it's hard as a rock. And one time I went outside and I just threw it across my yard.
Are you serious?
Oh, I was so pissed. I'm like, I can never figure it out. So
You just got to cook it long enough.
I don't know. I'm cursed. I have a
I'll
squash
help you out.
curse.
I'll help you out.
Hashtag squash curse.
And also, I just want to mention too, like with my blog and my Instagram and all that stuff, obviously I know it's called Killing It Keto. So I do follow the ketogenic lifestyle, but like we talked about, there's so many different kind of avenues within the ketogenic lifestyle and kind of living a fat fueled lifestyle. And so that's what I really try not to be dogmatic about different things and try to incorporate different information, especially into my blog posts. And I am like, my specialty is really, geared around helping women lose fat and sustain that fat loss long term. And so a lot of my blogs and things like that are centered around that, while still incorporating some, obviously keto and low carb and all of that. But there's all different and, lifestyle things and stress and sleep and all these different things. So that's kind of what I want to continue to put out more information and kind of just tips and tricks to how to optimize these different things within your lifestyle.
Yeah. And again, if you guys are listening to this show, if you're kind of plugged into my world, a very natural transition over to Rachel's world, like we vibe. All right. It's a very easy land bridge over into what she's got to say. I think it's going to be very complimentary. So give it a shot. Now, Rachel, I like to leave our audience with some momentum. I like to put them into action. So let's say that there's somebody out there that's ready to become metabolically flexible. They're ready to take that journey for the first time into the low carb lifestyle, but they're a little bit nervous about it. Let's say it's a female, just because we've been talking about that. What is one simple action step that they could take in the next 24 hours just to kind of get the ball rolling, whether it's doing some research or just leveling up their confidence or dropping their carbs or whatever? Like, what's one simple action step they could take here in the next 24 hours to start down that journey?
I think the simplest thing and the thing that's going to get you the furthest is just becoming a little bit more educated on the subject of becoming more metabolically flexible. So what does it actually mean? What are some tools and strategies that you can start to implement to work towards becoming more metabolically flexible? And that all comes back to like understanding what it is, and understanding the different components of it. So, I mean, if I were me, I would for example, on my blog, I have like 10 lessons that are really connected to my Keto for Women program. And they're basically the main topics that we go throughout the 3-month program. And they all have kind of their own actionable steps involved as well. And will kind of get you thinking more about these different components of, carb ups or fasting, or maybe implementing a little bit more protein, things like that. So just getting educated, maybe taking a look at some of those blogs, reading through them. One main thing that I would say is that I've noticed a lot of women are very chronically undereating protein, especially with keto. So I would say take a look at where your protein consumption's at and where that protein is coming from. it really should be coming from high quality animal sources, because we know that that is where the animal protein is where our bodies are can the animal protein is more bioavailable to our bodies.
Yeah.
So we process that much better than, if you're consuming plant proteins or things like that. But just protein in general, maybe take a look at that, see where you're at with that. If you have hit a plateau or a stall, maybe bumping up your protein a little bit, lowering the fat a little bit. If you have been, super high fat, that probably would be a good first step.
Excellent. Rachel Gregory, I'm so excited that we've had you here for this conversation. She will be back for more, ladies and gentlemen. And maybe spoiler alert here, Rachel has promised me, now that I'm saying it live on air, it has to happen. She is going to come and speak at my Million Pound Mission Live event here in October. Head on over to millionpoundmission.com and get your tickets if there are any available when this goes live, and come and see Rachel in person. So exciting. So I know you're super busy, and I appreciate you investing time here in me, in our friendship, and here with my audience today. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody, let's get out there and take action. Set that implementation alarm in the next 24 hours. What are you going to do to start down that path to become metabolically flexible, and then get out there and own it every meal, every workout, every day? I will see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. Now, don't forget to head on over to millionpoundmission.com to pick up your free Mission Possible Community Virtual Welcome Kit. Now, this free resource is going to show you how to get plugged into our community chats, our amazing Facebook group. It'll show you how to sign up for one-on-one hot seat sessions with me, the PhD, and we'll even show you how to start your own local meetup group for that extra support. Now, remember, my friend, this isn't just a podcast. This is a community, and you are an important part of it. So head on over to millionpoundmission.com today and get plugged in.